Hey, listen, it's not round zero. So for the first time this year, we're going to have an opening round as detailed by the AFL this morning. So 4 matches set to feature in Queensland and New South Wales to kick off the action in 2024. So it all begins Thursday, March the 7th, Scoob, and then round 1 will follow as normal with Carlton Richmond at the MCG.
Thursdays?
So first 14 bang, laid out, including this opening round. So rounds 1 to 15 will be released by the AFL tomorrow, and 14 of those rounds will feature Thursday night football, which you know is my love. But then I'm told that's it. Zippity, lock it up, no more. Now, they've got full flexibility from round 15 on, but the intention at this point is to not bring it back until perhaps the first week of finals when we get a Thursday night final, maybe a qualifying final. But at this stage, it's not coming back for the rest of the season. So the opening round fixture, the very first game of 2024 will be Sydney and Melbourne at the SCG. So your Swans there, Scoob, up against the D's to open her up. That's at 7:20. Friday will be Brisbane and Carlton at the Gabba, a replay, of course, from the preliminary final this year. That's at 7:50 local. And Saturday the 9th of 6:50 local, 7:50 Eastern. And then Saturday the 9th of March, Gold Coast Suns and Richmond. So Damien Hardwick coaching against his old mob for the first time straight off the bat. Heritage Bank Stadium, that one on the Saturday twilight, 4:20 Eastern, 3:20 local. And then it's the Giants and Collingwood, the Giants getting their wish there. That's at Giants Stadium, 7:30 Saturday night. That's opening round. I've got to say, I like opening round as a concept. And it might not be a popular view, but the buys will be made up between rounds 2 and 6 for the 8 teams that play in it, Scoob. And so by the beginning of round 7, all teams would have played the same number of games. You like it as a concept?
Any concept that's promoting the game nationally, I think is a really good concept. As you know, it took me a little bit to gather this morning that opening round and round 1 were 2 different things.
They are.
I didn't, it took me a little while to grasp that concept. I've now grasped it, and I think, okay, I'm running with it. I'm happy to. The NRL are away, the AFL. We know there's a battle on there for sporting eyeballs, and we want to take some ground. So we're going to do it. I like it.
That's it.
Good start from Dills.
That's an opportunity, yeah. Right. And Andrew Dillon, the new AFL chief executive, or Dills as you call him, has said in a statement this morning that we were fortunate to be in a position where we were able to have access to our major venues in Queensland and New South Wales a weekend earlier than usual, which gave us a unique opportunity to play these 4 games in key markets where footy continues to grow in popularity. The 4 matchups are big, with 4 of our biggest supported Victorian clubs travelling north, and we look forward to starting our season with real momentum before we head into a blockbuster round of matches in round 1. We continue to find opportunities to build marquee games and events across the season, with recent examples being King's Birthday Eve, Anzac Day Eve, and Gather Round, and our 4 matches in the opening round build on this approach. It also falls on Labor Day weekend, which is big as well, in Victoria. So what a great opportunity, Andrew Dillon says, for families to travel. So the Collingwood fans, the Richmond fans, the Carlton fans as well, to get on the road or get on the plane on a long weekend and get up there to Sydney, Brisbane or the Gold Coast to watch some footy.
Yep, like it. Tick the box.
But the fixture will be big news when it is dropped tomorrow. I can also tell you round 1, Scoop. So I've got 7 of the 9 games in front of me here. A couple of clubs we can hypothesise on. But so Thursday night remains. That's Carlton and Richmond at the MCG. Friday night round 1 is Collingwood and Sydney. That'll be big. That's at the MCG. Saturday afternoon back at the G's, Essendon and Hawthorn. Couple of old foes going at it. Saturday night, so the Cats get the home games early this year because the venue will be finished after the building delays down there. That's Geelong and your Saints. Are they still your Saints, by the way, or are you giving yourself over to the Dogs?
What do you think?
I think you've given yourself over. Sunday afternoon, Melbourne and the Western Bulldogs at the MCG. There's Port Adelaide and West Coast. That's on the Sunday, obviously over at the Adelaide Oval, and Fremantle and Brisbane at Optus on the Sunday. So it's Giants, Gold Coast, Adelaide and North Melbourne, the remaining clubs of round 1 that I don't have the exact matchups for, but that'll be good too.
Is there an advantage in playing opening round and then playing a side that hasn't played a game yet in round 1?
Absolutely. I think that's real. And that's why I was keen for the breaks to happen, the buys for those clubs playing in opening round to happen earlier, just to flush it all out and maybe equalise it a bit. Because, round 1, there's always a bit of rust, isn't there?
Has to be.
And players seem to fatigue early. You know, they're blowing up early in the first couple of rounds as well. So if you've got an extra game under your belt and you're playing another team in round 2, 3, and 4 as an opening round side, then I think you've got a small, only small, but a small advantage.
Heat on your head of performance that he has your side ripping and raring to go. If you're going to cop someone in that first round that's already actually played a full AFL match.
And it's not for everyone. What a crock of shite. So round 1 will actually be round 2. AFL yet again, overthinking things. Another leg up for the big Melbourne teams. Big advantage for those teams in round 2, which is actually round 1, this text is saying as well, coming back to your point. Everything's worth a crack. I think while the NRL is away, you definitely move in there. And I think we can do better with Sydney.
I think the positives outweigh the negatives substantially.
Man, well, we'll try it. We'll see how it works out. Gather round obviously locked in as well. So that's from the first week of April. We saw the AFL announce that earlier this week. So that's all set in stone. Has Andrew Dillon realised, says Lee, there's a cost of living crisis going on and families can't afford to travel to watch footy as the airlines and hotel prices gouge them when they know special games are on. Talk about being out of touch. That's from Lee in Melbourne. Well, we feel for people who can't go, Lee. That might be you, but there'll be people who can who'll be thankful for the opportunity to get away and watch their sides because that's what we get told off the Footy Wings Temper all the time. Stuff the floating fixture. They don't like it. They want certainty so they can travel to watch their sides. I think that's something we do in our
And
game.
there's other ways of consuming the game as well, and that's on telly and also radio and all those sorts of things. So we hope, Lee, that the majority of people can see their side or hear their side one way or another, no matter where the country is at economically and whether that cost of living crisis is really biting. There's lots of ways of consuming their footy team.
Felix perhaps being a bit mischievous, but Felix says flight prices have already trebled for opening round. Bill shock. Yeah. Well, maybe that will come in time. But
Bill shock is $21 for a pint at the Lawn Pub.
Yeah, you can't get over that.
There's no cash here.
$21.
So Richmond
Four of us having a beer, hardly any change out of a greenback.
Here's a good call. Richmond play Gold Coast on the Saturday afternoon up there. This text is saying, so Richmond play against Gold Coast, then only a 5-day break to the following Thursday against a fresh Carlton. But it's only rounds 1 and 2. Richmond should be relative. I wouldn't have thought a 5-day break bites hard after round 1 like it might bite after round 11. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that.
After, 5 months of preparation.
Yeah. You're getting a bit sore mid-season and it's taking you 6 or 7 days to get over what happened on Friday night. I think in rounds sort of 1 to 5, it's more adrenaline that's driving you more than anything else.
Sam, how wrong were you? There's a game on Thursday every round for the first 14 rounds. Well, I'm not wrong at all. I said that, no, because yesterday I said we're not going to have enough Thursday nights because Andrew Dillon said it would only increase by 2 to 3. Well, it's increased by 3. Double 5 nights. It was 11 last year. It just so happens they're all coming at once. Now, if the AFL then come out after round 15 and schedule another 5, then I'll say I was wrong. But that's not their intention at the moment. It will be another 3 and only 14. I wanted it every week.
Niggly, don't you? You do get
niggly.
On your birthday,
double 5-9's getting niggly.
Just calm down.
I'm calm.
It's your birthday.
You know who was calm
I
yesterday?
turn 50 every day of the week.
50.
We're going to get pre-season stories, okay? And most of the time you can take them with a pinch of salt. Such and such is in flying, he's in ripping form, he's won the time trial, he's burning up the track. We're going to hear all of that.
I saw Dylan Stevens won the shuttle run.
He did.
Whatever that is at the Kangaroos, which is a start.
Well, it's a start that he was there. Because I don't think with Dylan and his experience was required to be there. But he turned up at his new club. He won the test. Josh Simpkin was there. He didn't need to be there. Good. Liam Shields was out there in season number 16. I thought, good on you, Liam, for turning up and setting the example, which is what you're there to do. At the Bombers, Dyson Heppel was there. He doesn't have to be there. He's played far more years than 5 years. Todd Goldstein was even there. The guy's 34 years of age. Jake Kelly at West Coast, they need a fast start and they need to show they're serious. So McGovern was there, Elliot Yeo, Barras, Sheed, Liam Duggan, Jamie Cripps was out there. At the Hawks, James Sicily was there, Dylan Moore was there, and James Warple was there. They didn't need to be there. One player who wasn't there was Jack Ginnivan. Jack Ginnivan needed to be there. And I don't care what anyone says. He wasn't required to be there by law because he played long in the season. He played in the grand final. That means you get extra leave, and he's probably not required back for some time yet, probably a number of weeks. But if you were ever going to want to have a first impression, Jack Ginnivan needed to be at his new club on day one of pre-season. I mean, his workload hasn't been big. He doesn't need extra break. He's 20 years of age. He's played 42 games. A lot of those were as the sub. So it's not as if he is Scott Pendlebury, who needs a rest. It's Jack Ginnivan. So I just would have thought I would have loved for him to be out there in good shape.
Would you give him an out if he was overseas?
Well, not really, because I would have planned my overseas trip so that I was back on day one of pre-season. I think it would have been a huge boost for his teammates to see him out there.
Yep.
Needs a big pre-season and needed to make a statement. Certainly not a hanging offence. Not going to hold it against him, but I was just a little bit disappointed that he wasn't there.
Yeah, look, if he had been in Victoria, in the country, I can understand, maybe in Victoria or Melbourne, but if he didn't know he was going to Hawthorn, if he had have planned his holidays, he's probably somewhere training Kane overseas with Collingwood blokes.
He might be with, there's a lot of Essendon guys overseas, and he may be doing that. But I don't know. I just think there's only so much help we can give Jack, and I think that the penny's going to have to drop at some point. I'm not sure it's quite dropped yet. It may take a few more years, or it may happen quicker than that for some players. Like Jordan De Goey, it's taken 8 years. But I just hope he's learnt a couple of lessons this year, and he comes back in good shape for pre-season.
What's your expectations of him? What's his upside as a player?
He kicked 40 goals last year, didn't he? So, that's his upside. If you can get 40 goals out of him with
Is he All-Australian?
No.
Potentially?
No. You have to be really good to make the All-Australian team as a small forward. We've discussed this. Yep. I'm not sure he's at that level. Certainly not yet. Not as a 20-year-old. The other story I wanted to speak about was, we sort of were digesting the Bulldogs review because it came to hand, I don't know, a couple of, 20 minutes or so before we went on air last night, which is this...
You were digesting as you were reading.
I was. And I thought, well, how can you review the footy department when they haven't started yet? Yeah. I've had a bit more of a think about it today. I've spoken to a couple of people, and a couple of people reckon it was certainly focused on Luke Beveridge, but Chris Grant as well has to be in the gun for this from the people that I've spoken to today. So here's where it's at. The coach has got 2 years left on his contract that was signed 12 months before they needed to re-sign him. At the end of the season, they said they didn't need an external review, and that the decision to re-sign Luke Beveridge when they did was the right call. So that was that. And then they went on to basically sack everyone around him. I think Brendan Lade, maybe one or two others remain. Then the week that AFL clubs are returning for pre-season, as we've just discussed, they announced that Peter Jackson is coming in to do an external review, which they said that they didn't need. And I said last night, that's got to be focused on Luke Beveridge, but I neglected, and you pulled me up on this, it has to involve Chris Grant as well. So the question I've got tonight, and I want to put this out there, and you can answer it as well, Gerard, what if Peter Jackson finds that Luke Beveridge is in fact the problem? What happens then? This is what they got this guy in for, to come in and work out what is going wrong. Largely, the review is focused on Luke Beveridge. What percentage of that you can argue. What if he comes back and says, well, the coach is the problem?
I'd be staggered if he was in a position to be able to ascertain that, Kane. I don't think he'd be looking to that. I think what he's looking for is more structural. How are we communicating? Is this bloke capable of doing the job? And I'm not talking about the coach. I'm talking about Chris Grant, because that's his area of influence, or his area of expertise. His area of expertise isn't X's and O's on the whiteboard. But he may well be talking, okay, how are you involving your new assistants? How are you attempting to do this? I don't think they're about to make a move on the coach. No. And I don't think Jackson would take a job if that was at all in the purvey of what he's been asked to do. So I think it'd be very structural. I think he'd be, just looking at the way the department's set up, the way Chris Grant operates, the way Luke Beveridge operates. Is there any ways that you can operate a little bit better? But ultimately, both those guys will swing on the performance of the club again. Yeah. It'll be wins and losses at the end of the season, and if it's a non-finals performance, then the heat will really come to bear.
So I'm a little bit more cynical than that, than you, and who knows where the actual truth lies. So in the release from the president, Kylie Watson-Wheeler, She said Peter's role will provide his advice to club leadership, outlining his perspective on the men's program and any recommendations he has for enhancing our AFL team's future success, which we will consider and share in due course. I wonder how much.
long's he there for, Kane?
Well, I asked that question to someone today. They said he acts pretty quickly, so they sort of suggested 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, so this has got nothing to do with on-field performance. How can you assess that when you're not playing? This is structure.
Yeah, but my question was last night, how can you work out how they're all communicating with each other and the feedback channels and who says what and who does what and whose role is which when they haven't started yet? That was why I was a bit cynical. The other question I've got is why they left it so late.
Yeah, well, I think that's a really interesting point, who's changed their mind.
Yeah, so I mean, it was obvious that this club needed the strictest review of any club. And I said this on Footy Classified after round 20. I said there's got to be an external review here. They opted not to. Now, the Herald Sun yesterday said that their number one ticket holder has urged them to do the review. Maybe that's one reason, or was the internal review not comprehensive enough? Now, what we do know is you need a stable footy club across all departments to win. You can't, Gerard, and you know that you can't just have a talented list, and that means you look at the Premiers, how stable they are in their leadership structure off the field. Go from Geelong to Richmond to Sydney to Collingwood. The stability is what makes great footy clubs, not just a talented list. So how can they turn up for pre-season with all this going on? And it did take me back to the Saints in 2013 when they famously sacked Scott Waters with a year to go on his contract in November. After they did a review about this time, they said that there was increasing concerns over his coaching, particularly on match day, where frequently changing tactics and mixed messages were common. And they also said that they weren't convinced that Waters' behaviour was going to change. There's a couple of similarities. I'm not suggesting that Luke Beveridge is going to suffer the same fate as Waters, but all I'm saying is that him and his football boss are in a pretty precarious position on the eve of pre-season training. 1300 736 736, but you just think that the other question is how much should be released to the supporters of this review, Gerard? Warts and all?
Well, I think most people would expect the board to make that decision, and warts and all, I'm not sure. Depends on what's in it. I mean, you're not going to destabilise your club. This is my point, Kane. Peter Jackson is not there to destabilise this club on the eve of.
Does that mean he's not fully honest, though?
Oh no, he can be fully honest with the board, 100% fully honest with the board, but you're not. Your focus is on the coach. Now, if he thought there was a problem with Chris Grant, well, then he may act, because that's not destabilising the.
He's replaceable. Yeah,
he's replaceable as against the coaches, as against the position of the coach at this time of the year, and even for Chris Grant, I would say that would be a huge upset if you thought, no, this guy needs to go. I mean, clearly, I think he's there as a godfather, as an advisor, as how do we get Chris Grant to get better if we think he needs to get better?
Yep.
Let's get a guy in who's been in that position, who has seen it, who's taken Essendon to the promised land, who's taken Melbourne virtually to the promised land. So to me, I think it's a smart involvement. You probably would have liked to have seen it earlier in the piece.